As we talk about writer's block this week, I want to speak specifically to outcome anxiety. This state that we get ourselves into where we are so worried about what the outcome of our action is going to be that we sometimes don't even take the action. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author. I have written 26 books. I've published most of them. And I make these videos because there are a lot of authors out there who don't feel like they're making it, and I don't want you to be one of them. There is nothing so poisonous as fear of failure. I remember countless times when I was a kid where I would watch somebody do something really cool, and I would think to myself, man, I wish I could do that. I grew up in a family with a lot of older brothers, and I would see them do something athletic, or I would see them produce something, some art, or practice some skill, and I would think to myself, I really wish that I could do the same thing. And then I would try, but my attempt never looked like my older brother's attempts. And so inevitably, I would put down whatever it was, the pencil, the skateboard, the guitar, whatever it was. I would put it aside and say, well, I can't do that thing. Listening to that, I'm sure you've had similar experiences, but isn't it silly? Isn't it odd that we would expect ourselves to be good at something from the beginning, and that we wouldn't be willing to try, that we wouldn't be willing to put in effort to get better at something because we saw that we were not as good. We saw that we didn't measure up. Well, as writers, this happens to us all of the time. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down to write something only to find myself unable to write it. And normally I would chalk it up to writer's block and say, okay, well, I guess that's it. I guess today just isn't a good day for writing. But again, when we start to peel back the layers and examine our first principles, the principles that we are operating out of, I often find that for me, fear of failure is a major contributor to why I find it so hard to write. When I worry about how good my writing will be, it becomes exponentially harder for me to write. And more importantly, it becomes exponentially harder for me to give my writing to other people, which is a necessary component in improvement. And so because I'm afraid that I'm going to read it and not like it, or I'm afraid that somebody else is going to read it and not like it, I just don't do it. And worse, that not doing it builds into a habit in and of itself, producing long-term writer's block. I know I've talked about this on the channel before, but this has led me to the development of a principle. And this is a principle that I try to apply all of the time, but I do have to constantly remind myself. The principle is simply make bad art. As soon as we remove the need to be good, as soon as we remove the requirement that something meet a specific standard, and we give ourselves the permission to make bad art, we free ourselves from these chains of worry. We free ourselves from the hesitancy to produce whatever it is we're trying to produce. When I sit down to write a new story and I think to myself, I'm going to mix in a genre that I've never tried before. If I say that I have to meet the standard of the best writers of that genre, I am never going to do it. I'm never going to write. But if instead I say, it's okay if it doesn't turn out perfectly because this is just a try, then all of a sudden I'm free to write how I want to write. I'm free to test and explore and experiment without the pressure of what I'm creating being good. Now, this idea of make bad art only works if you're also invested in the long game. And writing is a long game. We often see people who have overnight success, and we think to ourselves, man, wouldn't it be great to be in that position? The reality is that no, it wouldn't be great to be in that position. And if you talk to any of those people, they'll express the same thing. Viral success is not all it's chalked up to be, but that's for another video. For the mass majority of writers, writing is something that just takes a really long time. It takes years and years in order to get good at it. It takes years and years in order to sell manuscripts. It takes years and years in order to create enough of a reader base for your specific work that it's a sustainable thing. This element of time is so vitally important to being a writer. And one of the best things that it does for us is allow us to make bad art. It allows us to make our mistakes and get better and improve. So the next time you are sitting with writer's block, the next time you are sitting there and you just can't think of what to write, take a deep breath, look yourself squarely in the eye and say, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to exist. But I'm curious about how you face your anxiety. Does writing make you anxious? If so, let me know down in the comments how you deal with it. One of the best parts of being a writer is learning from others. Look through the comments and see if there are some tips and tactics that you can use in your own writing journey.